I'm Mike Vardy.
Meal planning is important because it prevents us from being a disappointed wreck when dinner time comes around and we have no clue what to make, or even if we have the ingredients to make the meal. It's a time and a money saver, but most importantly, it frees up valuable brain space. Creating a meal plan prepares us for the week to come and gives us peace of mind that we're organized and can feed ourselves and our family. That's why I do it, and that's why Plan to Eat helps me do it. Your subscription includes access to the Plan to Eat website and fully featured mobile apps on iOS and Android. And Plan to Eat gives you the tools to clip and organize recipes from any website, the ones your family loves and that fit your dietary preferences and needs. And you can create a meal plan around your schedule. Then what happens is the Plan to Eat software automatically creates an organized shopping list based on your plan. So sign up for your free trial at plantoeat.com/timecrafting. That's plantoeat.com/timecrafting. The coupon will be automatically applied to your account and can be used when you're ready to subscribe. It's valid for new customers only. Give Plan to Eat a try today.
And this is the Productivityist Podcast. Hey everybody, it's Mike here again, Mike Vardy, host of the Productivityist Podcast. And this week I have a fantastic guest on the show, as per usual. But this one is interesting because we were able to have a really good back and forth, a good conversation, and I'm really proud of the results of it. This is Kevin Kruse, who's on the show today. He's the author of 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management, the productivity habits of 7 billionaires, 13 Olympic athletes, 29 straight-A students, and 239 entrepreneurs. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of productivity habits. And there's 15 secrets that he talks about, not in the book. And we touch on them during this week's episode as well. I'm really excited to have the ability and the time to chat with Kevin because, it's, again, I get to talk to a lot of people about productivity, but when you get validation and when you're reading some of the stuff, and I read his book is really good. What I liked about it, and I talk about this off the top, is just how digestible it is. It's a really effective and efficient read. And if you're really looking to level up your productivity, then reading this book is a great way to go. And I'll tell you how to get the book for free, and Kevin does near the tail end of this episode. So let's just get right into it, because we talk about things like, the procrastination cure. We talk about a whole bunch of things, routines, all that stuff. You'll hear that and more in this week's episode of the show. And stick around after the interview, and I'll have a little bit more for you as we come around to the end of it. So here it is, my discussion with Kevin Kruse on the Productivityist Podcast. I'd like to welcome Kevin Kruse, author of 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management, to the show. Kevin, thanks for joining me this week.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Mike. Glad to be here.
So, Kevin, I went through the book. I got an ARC copy, as they call it, to go through, an ARC. And, I was talking to you about this just before we began our conversation here about what I liked about the book, and you don't find this very often in books, especially about time management, is that you've got a lot of content packed into, this book, but you've also divided it up in a way that if you're you're almost being time conscious of the reader who is just learning how to be better with time management, because every couple pages you're like, oh, I could take that. Oh, this is great. Oh, do you know what I mean?
Well, they say you're supposed to write a book that you would like to read, so I think it's a reflection of my own short attention span. I like to present very actionable tips and topics. Give it the mindset, give it a story, and let's figure out how to turn it into a habit and move on. That's what I was striving for.
And the other thing, too, is that what I liked about it is that most people, when they're searching for tips about time management, productivity, all that stuff, is that they're searching online, right? So they are going through blogs and they see it on Facebook or whatever, and they're checking all these things off. And meanwhile, they've got these other things that are pulling at them, whether it's email, whether it's whatever. But because you kind of did it in a book form, you can't get pulled away nearly as... It's not like you can click, let me go check and see what... There's no hyperlinking nearly, you know what I mean? Where you're not getting pulled outside of that realm, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. Most of us, again, either because we're time starved or we're just trained now, we are used to reading quick bite-sized articles on the internet. And I mean, I hope that that's one of the benefits of books, whether digital or paper form, is that people kind of stick with them more. It helps them to stay focused. But as you said, I mean, the good news is any one of these 15 habits can have an impact on your productivity. And so the idea is just to take what works and to stack those habits up and come back for more when you're ready.
So why'd you decide, I mean, other than the fact that you mentioned that, you write the book that you want to read, but why time management? I mean, there's so much out there. I mean, you and I both, dwell in this space to know that, every time a book comes out, I'm like, that's great stuff. Like, you had a lot of great stuff in here. Some stuff that I've talked about, either from my own methodology or from, again, we've learned it from others. Why did you say, what we need out there is another book on time management?
Because the 50,000 that you can find on Amazon just aren't enough. Well, I'll answer it two ways, Mike. I mean, first, the topic of time and productivity is, I mean, it's an odd thing, but it is a passion of mine. It's almost an obsession. The only piece of artwork that I've ever purchased, it's the single most expensive thing I've ever bought, is a piece of mixed media kind of modern art from a guy named Peter Tunney, and it says, "The time is always now," and it sticks in my living room. And this has come from when I was in my 20s, starting. I'm a reformed entrepreneur. I kind of swallowed that myth of like hustle. There's time to sleep when you're dead. You just push on through, hustle, hustle, hustle.
Scheduling your sleep time,
scheduling,
stuff like
all that stuff. What sleep, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't work. I mean, my companies didn't do well. I physically, and emotionally didn't feel well. I blew up a marriage, over it. And when all that happened, I mean, I'm not the smartest guy, but I do learn. I reached out to those people who, fortunately, I knew who were, multimillionaires and successful government officials and athletes, all the ones who seemed to be doing a lot more than I was doing. And yet, they were walking calmly everywhere they went. They had time to golf and read and go on 1 million vacations a year. And I started picking their brain, and I got better and better, where ultimately, at one point, I had $1 million a year business, but I was working over 100 hours a week in it. And a few years later, after that, I had a $12 million a year business, and I was working less than 40 hours a week in it. Same guy, same business, same everything, but I figured out these productivity habits, and it completely changed. So the topic is a personal passion. Why do we need another book on it? This is the only book that isn't just based on, one guy's thoughts. I've got a lot of my thoughts and ideas and experiences in there. But I wanted to go out and I'm not trying to compare myself, but that great book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, he went out on a mission to interview over 200 people who were self-made millionaires to pick their brain and then to condense it, into a book. That was my approach. I thought, all right, I think I have some things to offer, but I'm not going to assume I'm the smartest guy in the room. Let me go out and see if I can get advice from Mark Cuban and a bunch of billionaires. Let me go find all the elite athletes and Olympic medal winners and pick their brain. Silicon Valley co-founders, solopreneurs, straight A students. And it was always just one question. It was an opening question. I'd say, tell me your number one secret to productivity. Or if you had to give someone time management advice, what would you tell them? And I would just let them tell me. And then, of course, I analyzed it, coded it, and boiled it down. So it's really the only book that combines, this much survey research and interview research with these top 1%ers, and then kind of boils it down. And I think, for people who have studied time management, there's I think a lot of familiar principles in there, but I think there were some surprises as well, and hopefully it will stimulate a new conversation for those who are interested. Well,
and you're right. As somebody who, it's funny, I look at the names that are in this book. I know John Lee Dumas. I know, James Altucher. I listen to his stuff all the time, Right. Mark Cuban, of course, everybody knows who Mark Cuban is. Richard Branson's mentioned it. There's no shortage of fascinating material in here that's not just like pie in the sky thinking, but it's proven, which is great. And I think the unique thing about this book, first off, is that yes, I said there's a lot in here, but it's distilled down to the 15 secrets. But you really dive into, you're right. There's not as much of like, this is what I think and this is my methodology and this is how this works. you're not afraid to say, hey, you know what? I right from the get-go, I was reading your introduction, and I'm like, this sounds very familiar. I mean, maybe not with the large business and stuff, but like the hyper scheduling, the forsaking of all the things that really ultimately matter. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's in, some of the secrets that are in there. So I want to talk to you about the idea of the guilt factor of leaving work before the time, quote unquote, that you are supposed to leave work. We've heard this with, some of the higher startup executives. I think Sheryl Sandberg's a great example where, she is like, she's done work at that time. Like she's done at whatever time I think she does wrap up at 5, if not earlier, because family and faith have a lot more, have as much precedence, if not more, and probably more than her profession at Yahoo, right?
Yeah, no, that's right.
So tell me how, again, we don't have a lot of time, and I obviously want people to read the book, but one of the things that you discovered when people were saying, hey, you know what, I can leave at 5 o'clock and be all fine and dandy and not feel like I'm letting anybody down along the way.
Yeah, well, I think that's it. I mean, I literally changed, my view on that. I was reading a business book. This is some years ago, and it was by Andrew Grove, who was the founder and CEO of the big chip maker Intel. Mm-hmm. And most people know his other work, but this is a book called High Output Management. And he talks about in the book how he leaves every day. I think it was 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, no matter what's going on. Now you can imagine running a $1 billion chip company in the tech space. Every day there's fires to put out and problems, and there's more to do and all that. And he wrote in his book, he says, my day ends when I'm tired, ready to go home, not when I'm done. I am never done. Like a housewife's, a manager's work is never done. This was written a little while ago. There is always more to be done, more that should be done, always more than can be done. And that hit me. I mean, that's the secret. Once you truly feel in your bones that, well, of course, there's always more to do. So you don't stay late because you still have more things on that to-do list or because something came up. There will always be a reason to stay late. And with Sheryl and with Andrew Grove and with so many of these ultra productive and successful people, they basically say, listen, you could devote every minute of the day to work or to anything. That's the wrong way to do it. You need to get really clear on your values. This is how many hours I will invest of my time at work. And then I'm also, another thing I value is my marriage. So I'm going to leave home at this time every day to allocate time to the relationship or to date night or whatever it is. And you just, you can sort of see our values when you peek on our calendars. And that was the thing is so many people either just don't go home, or when they do, they're feeling guilty because they quote unquote are leaving early, even though it's not early. And to me, that was the difference. There really is always more to do, always more that can be done. So you just need to decide how much will you invest of time in each area.
When I look at the contents of the book and the people you talk to, it seems like the common thread for all of these people, and I've talked about this before, is that they're pretty aware. Like they've got awareness in spades. How important do you think awareness is when it comes to time management and productivity? Because we can't stop time. Like you said, there's always more to do. And I mean, the danger is for a lot of people is that even when there is more to do and they leave the office, they go home and they continue to work in some way, shape, or form because technology allows for that. Or they don't go to sleep because they're like, well, I didn't get all this stuff that I needed to get done today, so I'm going to keep going until it's all finished. How in your research, when you were doing it, I mean, obviously these secrets come across and these different, more the kind of the tactical approaches. But when you're looking at the kind of the broader spectrum of it, how much did awareness really kind of and any other qualities kind of stand out for you?
Well, Mike, I'm so glad you asked because it's actually the very first chapter. I call it The Power of 1440, the number that can change your life, because there are only 1,440 minutes in a day. I'm looking at a little sticker that says 1440 that I've got on the bottom of my monitor to remind me that we only have 1440. And unlike so many other things, time is our most valuable asset because we can never get it back.
Mm-hmm.
We can lose money and make it again. We can even lose our health and get healthy again. We can even lose our best friend, and a year from now, we're going to have a new best friend. As awful as that sounds, time, tick, tick, tick. I mean, once it's gone, it's never coming back. And you're right. All of these people that I interviewed, maybe they don't all do the same little habit or trick. They do most of them, but they all feel this power of 1440. Once you really, it's a mindset thing, which a lot of people are like, oh, don't get all new agey. But once you really believe that time's your most valuable asset, it becomes easier to say no. It becomes easier to stay focused. You'll procrastinate less. So that mindset, that value of every minute, is really the unifying factor, and that's really where it all starts.
Now, when you're out speaking, and obviously you put this book in front of somebody, and they start reading it, and they get they have those old beliefs, like, oh, I can't do that. It must be nice for Richard Branson. I mean, he's a billionaire.
Right.
Like, how do you break through? Because I come across this as well, where you try to teach somebody, like you said, mindset. And it's funny, you mentioned like, oh, I'm not trying to get all new agey. The thing is about mindset is nothing to do with new aginess at all.
Right.
And you and I both know this, but a lot of people are like, oh, you're so zen, you're so, frou-frou or whatever. No, it's the same thing when I say you should journal. Like, oh, really? Okay, well, that's pretty. No, journaling is really important because it allows you to kind of reflect, review, and then course correct. Do you know what I mean? So how do you get people, when they are, and I'm not just speaking from the experience of the book, but just in general, because I know you work on this. How do you get people to say, when they're struggling with this mindset change to, take that leap, or even just dip their toe in the water?
Well, absolutely. And just to reinforce what you're saying, I mean, I often will use the example, in terms of the power of mindset. I mean, our actions are driven by our beliefs and our mindsets. So, and it's hard to change our behaviors, whatever it is, health behaviors, et cetera. So it needs to go back to mindset. Look, if I believe that smoking cigarettes is going to make me look cool and help me to stay skinny, I'm more likely to smoke cigarettes. But if my fundamental belief is that cigarettes are going to kill me young, a horrible cancerous death, I'm less likely to smoke cigarettes. My actions to do or not do something is completely driven by my beliefs. So, look, if we think we've got plenty of time, or the opposite, which is it's hopeless, with email and my boss, it's just hopeless. Well, then you don't change any behaviors. So if you truly believe, one, time is your most valuable asset, and two, there's all these other people, including crazy Kevin Kruse, who used to be young and dumb. I used to be overworked and overwhelmed. I used to be completely not in the moment, but I was able to adopt these things and change. And you're right. I do hear that like, well, of course these billionaires can do all this stuff because they've got 1 million administrative assistants and staffs and blah, blah, blah. That's not it. And in fact, most of the people that the research is based on solopreneurs, solo athletes, working parents. I mean, it applies no matter what. And like any behavior change, it is hard. But I say, pick one thing and try to make that a habit. When that sticks, you adopt another one. So, and this is a really silly, but illustrates the point. One of the keys, I know you know this, Mike, to you can't really make more time. It's about getting more energy and focus and using the time better. And that came through, the book. A lot of the responses had to do with energy. So one of the keys to having great energy throughout the day is to stay hydrated, to drink water, a lot more than we usually do. I needed to do that myself. And so first I'd be like, oh yeah, drink more water. I would try. I wouldn't do it. I would have a glass on my desk. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to drink 8 of those. Oh, it's empty. I guess I better go fill it up. It's 4 o'clock. I only drank 2 of those. Now, what I do to make that a habit is I've got an empty plastic water bottle of the right size next to my coffee pot. Now, every morning, already one of my habits is to walk downstairs and flick on the coffee pot so I can have my coffee. And as soon as I do that, I grab the empty water bottle, fill it up, and now I bring that and my mobile phone with me wherever I am throughout the day, knowing I need to drink the entire thing down, by the end of the day. But I anchored it to that coffee pot habit before it started to really stick. And you can do that with really any habit.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where routines are built upon, habits stacked upon other habits. I mean, before we recorded this interview today, we're recording this in the morning. I'm not a morning person. I'm a night owl. That's kind of the way I operate, the way I've been wired for a long time. My NutriBullet shake is prepared from either I prepare it or maybe my wife does it the night before. So all I have to do when I wake up in the morning is do these things: splash water on my face, go open up the fridge. Oh, there it is. Make my coffee, throw the water in it in the NutriBlast. Come downstairs, read some articles or do some reading for 25 to 30 minutes, and then, in this case, the first thing I'm doing is jumping on with you. But that doesn't change. The morning stuff doesn't change.
Right.
And then once you've done it often enough, it becomes, like you said, it becomes habit. It becomes part of the mindset, and it feels weird when you don't do it.
Oh, it feels awful when you don't do it.
And you don't know why. And sometimes you don't know why. You're like, why do I feel off? Oh, right, I didn't splash water on my face 3 times. Do you know what I mean?
And Mike, I'm glad you brought up the morning routine, because that was one of the big surprises to me in the book. Now, I always had my own, for the last maybe 5-10 years, I've had my own morning routine. I didn't know that other people did that. So remember, I'm asking all these people, hey, don't hold back. Give me your number one piece of advice. A lot of them talked about their morning rituals. Change your morning, change your life. Gary Vaynerchuk, Scott Adams, Kevin O'Leary, Tony Robbins, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Tim Ferriss, John Lee Dumas, Hal Elrod, all these guys. Of course, Hal Elrod. Yeah. I mean,
way earlier than the rest of us, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. A little earlier than I get up. But all of these guys are talking about their key to productivity is what they do in the first 30 to 60 minutes of their day. And right next to my empty water bottle is my bullet blender, because I do a shake in the morning too. Mm-hmm. So it's really funny, how many people are starting to find the power of these morning rituals.
How many people did evening rituals too? Because I find that's critical as well, like to make sure you wrap up your day the same way as well. How many of them kind of focused on that? Was that because I find the morning routine is definitely the big winner, but evening routines kind of, it doesn't necessarily happen as much with just in general.
Yeah, to be honest, not a single person mentioned their evening routine. I too am a believer in it, though, because I think setting yourself up for the next day's success is part of my rituals. That's part of how I start to relax and get my head ready to go to sleep. It's setting up, the coffee and the shakes and all those things, knowing what I'm going to wear, looking at my calendar so I kind of know what my morning looks like. But I'll be honest, while many, many people mention the morning routine, nobody mentioned the evening routine to me.
Interesting. Because the evening routine is critical for me, especially not being a morning person.
What do you do in your evening routine?
My evening routine is I journal. So I open up an app called Day One, and I journal. So I chronicle the day, and then I go into my task management app. And I'm going to talk about your to-do list in a minute, because I'm really fascinated by your to-do list. And then what I go in is I mark down what I call my 3 absolutes, which, are pretty similar to the 3 MITs, which you mentioned in the book, of course. And then I write them down. I have a whiteboard. It's actually... as I walk into my office, I write them down. I write the 3 absolutes that I want to accomplish that day on my whiteboard as I walk in, and then I shut my office door, and then I go to bed. So my evening routine is really simple. It's just journal, make sure you note the 3 absolutes you're going to do the next day, and then shut the office door, because when I shut my office door, I work from home. It means business is closed for the day. Like there's, because being a night owl, what happens with me is my wife and I spend time together in the evening, and then she goes to bed around 10:30, and I'm up till about 1. But my kids are already in bed, and so that 10:30 to like 12:30 in the morning, maybe 1 o'clock time, is really, really some good focus time that I can have. So what happens is anytime I'm not in my office, and this took some practice, and it only happened once I took over the basement of our house, is I finally got an office with a door in it, or door on it, so I could. Right. So when the door is shut. And again, real quick things, door shut means business is not open. Door shut with, like, I've got this door knocker that I got, from when I was at Book Expo a few years ago from the One Thing. Gary Keller's The One Thing.
Yeah.
I have that hanging on my door. So if that's hanging on my door, which it is right now, means nobody's good. My son, when he was 3, recognized, okay, there's that thing on the door. I can't knock on the door. And he thinks everything I do is a podcast. If the door's shut with that on there, he's like, Dad's doing a podcast, which is fine because it keeps him quiet.
Right. I love it.
But I mean, it's again, triggers, right? Like anything. And I know that if I didn't do those 3 absolutes the night before and I came downstairs and I didn't see them on the wall, I would go, oh, I wonder what email I got. I wonder what Facebook, like I'd be Pavlovian in the way I react. And then my agenda would kind of go out the window, or at least it would be, I wouldn't be able to start off my day with a running start. I'd be kind of, crawling into the day. So I'm wise enough to know that, old man Mike that ends the day at 1:30 in the morning goes, hey, baby New Year, Mike, I know you're going to be distracted by the shiny objects of Facebook and all that. So here's the 3 things you got to do. So that's how I do it.
No, I love that. And, you mentioned you got kids. I got kids too. And that's the other excuse I hear all the time is, all these people that are doing all this stuff, it's because they don't have kids. I have kids. Well, I'm a single dad of 3 kids. You mentioned you've got a son, and that's just a limiting belief. Sure, it's hard. Kids are the greatest thing and the hardest thing, but just as you said, there are triggers and there are rituals and tools that we can all use to be more productive.
So let's talk about your to-do list. So what do you use for your to-do list?
So I don't use a to-do list. And in fact, it's one of the core things that I preach is I think to-do lists are evil and part of the problem. Out of the 250-ish 1%ers I interviewed, I think 1 or 2 mentioned that they use a to-do list. Everybody else, they're running their life from their calendar. So it's a subtle difference, but to-do lists, which were, the legend is that, Ivy Lee sort of invented it over 100 years ago for executives at U.S. Steel. That's an idea. To-do lists as a tool, as a technology, as a method used to work back when we weren't all so busy. There wasn't as much to do. We all had assistants running around. And today it can work if you've got, an average workload and average pace. I think for extreme productivity, though, everything I've seen is if you want to do it, you put it on your calendar, you schedule it. And over again, I was getting, the interview feedbacks of, hey, I changed the default on my calendar, my computer calendar, to 15-minute chunks, and everything goes on it. If I'm going to process email, it's scheduled on the calendar. If I'm going to do social media, it's on the calendar. If I'm doing my mid-morning break, it's on my calendar. If I'm going to get a haircut on the last Friday of every month, it's already on the calendar forever. And that was that was another big key, because to-do lists, because there's no time dimensions on them, we tend to do the thing that's easy or quick, not necessarily what's most important or strategic. There was one research study that really cracked me up that showed that 50%, half of the things that go on people's to-do list are never done. And I used to have those things like, oh, go get that awkward doctor appointment scheduled from 3 years ago or something like that. So, that's a key. I don't use a to-do list. I do put every single thing on the calendar. How do you
find, I use a combination thereof. You mentioned, one of the things that gets mentioned in the book is the idea of theming days, right?
Yeah. Right.
And that's something I teach and something I do. And I think that what I find is I think that when people are using that methodology, the idea of theming your days and having a general overarching understanding of what your days are supposed to look like, because you've said this is what my days are going, or it's supposed to change to going to, like my day Monday, this is the overarching element, this is the overarching theme of the day. I think in my estimation and from my own experience is I think that if you can do that and you can kind of have an understanding of that being, again, a trigger to say, okay, it's Thursday's podcast recording day. Okay, let me think about all the podcasting stuff I have to do, versus Again, versus just having a list where there's no kind of dimensions to it. Because I think that the basic to-do list had no dimensions to it. You would just go down the list like a laundry list. Right, but I think if you organize your to-do list, and I think this is where I often hear this. Chris Ducker talks about like scheduling everything, and everyone. I mean, I hear this all the time, and I think that there are some definite benefits to obviously making agreements with yourself for either chunks of the day. But my biggest obstacle, and it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on this, is when you hit that wall where you're like, I see that it's this, but I don't feel like doing this right now, or I'm sick, or whatever. Right. Whereas I think I think it's important to have as many things in your clip as possible. If you've got theme days, and then when I teach with the Now Your approach or Now Your method, is theme your days and then have focus on mode-based work rather than project-based work on your list. So attach a mode to every single task that you have. So and you can use time-based modes too. So if you're like, hey, I've got 30 minutes between meetings, let me look at all the tasks I have on my list, sort them by 5-minute mode, and see how many of them I can knock out. But it does take, again, like any of this other stuff, it takes practice and setup and all that stuff. So, I mean, curious, like, how do you, everything goes in your calendar. What happens when you reach that obstacle, or even with these other folks that you interviewed, when they reach the obstacle of, I don't feel like doing that, or they're waiting on something that's not there at that time. Like, how do they deal with that? Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think that a lot of the principles in the book and what I try to practice, I mean, there's rarely a perfect day where it all flows. And I think that absolutely I will very often, and often enough, look at my calendar in the morning. I think I know what the day is going to go. And, something blows up and needs attention that legitimately can't wait. Or it's a beautiful sunny day out and my kids are home and I've decided I want to take them to the park, or whatever that is. And so I will move time blocks. I try to, be very careful about it. So if, for example, I always know my most important task, my MIT, and I sort of do self-talk in the morning where I look at that calendar and think, okay, I'm going to win this freaking day. I'm going to win the day before noon. What is it I have to accomplish to win the day before noon? And I generally am fairly focused, disciplined. I don't budge a lot on my morning routines. But then if I've got something that happens to be, call my buddy Mike Vardy and congratulate him on his forthcoming book, and that's time blocked for 30 minutes this afternoon, and then my kids want me to take them to the park, I'll think, well, it's not scheduled with Mike, doesn't even know I'm going to call him. I'll bump that call to tomorrow and take advantage of the sunshine. So, and I get that just recently online, someone said, well, Kevin, what about serendipity and joy and spontaneity? Like, where's the fun in life? And I view it like the more you can get into these habits and rituals and routines and being clear on your values and what you want to accomplish, then you're creating pockets of time and emotional freedom to say, wow, I'm not stressed out. I can go spend time with my kids and actually enjoy being with my kids because I'm not thinking about, oh, wow, I'm so stressed with all that stuff back in the office or back on my to-do list. So I think it actually opens up pockets for some flexibility. Yeah, frameworks foster freedom. Like, really,
I love that. I love that.
That's really what it boils down to. Okay, before we wrap up, I got a couple more things I want to touch on. Procrastination. Cure it now.
Well, my favorite trick, there's 6 techniques. My favorite is what I call the time travel trick. The problem is this time dissonance we have where we think right now in the present moment, we want to be a certain way or do something. Like I'm in the grocery store and I'm buying lettuce and carrots because I'm going to eat a lot of salads this week because I want to be healthier. I want to lose 10 pounds. And then, of course, a week later, I'm throwing out all the rotting vegetables from my refrigerator because, I chose the frozen burritos and fast food. We have this disconnect. Our future self is the enemy of our best self, of our present best intention. So what the trick is to time travel into the future and say, all right, how am I going to jeopardize myself in the future? And what can I do about it now? So, a simple thing for me is like, if I want to consistently exercise, get on that treadmill, I think about, well, you know what? the future Kevin, if I wait for to do it in the afternoon, that Kevin's going to say he's tired, he's sick, he's too busy at work. So I'll schedule it in the morning. Okay, but then I know that darn Kevin's going to say, he's going to get out of bed and he's going to say, you know what, I'll just take a peek at my emails and get a little bit of work done. Well, I'm going to hide that phone. I'm not even going to have it anywhere in the bedroom. So when I get out of bed, I'm going to step on my workout clothes, splash water on my face, and get on the treadmill. So it's kind of like outwitting yourself. And the craziest one I ever saw, a friend of mine, she ordered I think like a turkey burger with, instead of the fries, she wanted a salad, trying to be healthy. They brought it to her, but they brought the fries. Now, instead of sending it back, I guess she just, figured she would deal with it and it wasn't worth it. But I saw her take the lid off of the salt shaker, completely off, and dumped the contents of the salt all over the French fries, wrecked them, completely covered them. Like, what did you do that for? She says, Kevin, I know that my future self in 3 minutes is going to say, oh, I'll just have one fry. And then the 5-minute future self is going to say, well, that tasted really good. 2 more is not going to hurt. And then the 10-minute future self is going to be like, oh, just eat the fries. You'll, work out extra hard later tonight. So she battled her future self by oversalting her fries. The same thing works with anything we're procrastinating, whether it's the performance reviews that are boring and stupid that I don't want to do, or I've got to fire Bill because he's a real slacker and I don't want to have that conversation, or I want to write the next great novel and I haven't done it yet for years.
Kevin, thanks so much for joining me this week on the podcast. Where can people find you when you are not sharing the secrets that people really need to really need to get in so that they can, level up their productivity and, get more of the right things done every single day?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I mean, the easiest thing to find me, I've set up a page so all of your listeners, if they cover shipping, I'll send them a free paperback copy of the book. The website is 15timesecrets.com. That's the numbers 15timesecrets.com. Books available, Amazon, Kindle, everywhere. And my name is Kevin Kruse. So kevinkruse.com, Kruse is the last name.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me this week on the Productiviest Podcast.
Thanks, Mike.
And there we have it. That's the discussion. That's the conversation. What a great conversation I had. And we went on a little bit further on the Patreon edition. So if you go to patreon.com/productivityist, you can hear the entire conversation in full, which again, there's a lot more there that you can check out. And there's a lot more bonuses that you'll get at the Patreon page, as well as a member of the Patreon community for Productivityist Podcast. Again, big thanks to Kevin for joining me on the show. Don't forget to go to 15timesecrets.com to get the free book, and there's bonuses and all that stuff there. I had a great time chatting with him, and I'll have a great time again next week delivering you another podcast and the weeks after that as well. Big thanks to John Polstra, podcast producer extraordinaire. Thanks to all of my Patreon supporters for supporting the show. Thanks to all of my readers, all of my subscribers to the Productivityist weekly newsletters, all the people who have picked up my new course that I co-created, my new class, mini course, whatever you want to call it, that I created alongside Shawn Blanc, called the Awareness Building Class. And if you're listening to this on the day that the podcast was released, you have until October 26th to get the Awareness Building Class for free if you buy the Focus course, which is Shawn Blanc's flagship product. So head over to thefocuscourse.com. There's a link in the show notes as well. And you'll be able to get that Awareness Building Class that I co-created, 5 modules that focus on 5 different things that you can use to start building awareness today, because you've heard me talk about this before, that I believe awareness is one of the critical components, one of the keys to meaningful productivity. Again, I'm really grateful to all those of you who've already picked that up, as well as anyone who's interested. Check it out. Of course, all that will be in the show notes, along with everything else that we talked about today. So until next week, stop guessing and start going. We'll see you next week on the show.